Today you're going to get insight into insight. Hopefully. First of all, sometimes you've got to clear the decks, to take off all the old rubbish from the table before you understand what insight is. Because in the last 20, 30 years, you've got insight has become a type of meditation. And sometimes when you talk about insight, people assume that you mean this type of meditation, which was basically developed over in Burma about 30, 40 years ago. Developed recently, not original to the time of the Buddha. And so the first story I like telling is of this very wealthy woman. And she came to the temple one evening to listen to a Dharma talk. But before she left, her mansion, she told the guard, you've been to some of these places, they have these big mansions, they have like a guard at the mansion, to make sure it's looked after while people are away. She told her gatekeeper, he said, I'm going to the temple this evening to listen to a Buddhist talk. I want you to be very careful to guard my house. There's so many valuable things inside of it. And I want you to be mindful. And the guard said, yes, madam, I will be mindful. I've done retreats on Vipassana. I know mindfulness. I can do it very easy, madam. So the owner of the house, the rich lady, she went to the temple and she heard a really lovely talk. And when she went back to her house, she found it had been burgled. The burglars had been in and stolen almost everything. And so she went to her guard and said, you stupid guard, I've been burgled and I told you to be mindful and you said you knew about mindfulness, you'd gone to retreats about mindfulness. What happened? And she said, madam, I was mindful. Just like I was taught by the monks. I was very mindful. I saw the burglars and I noted burglar going in, burglar going in, burglar going in. I saw them carrying your jewelry out and I noted jewelry going out. Jewelry going out. I saw them going back in again with their truck. And I saw your safe coming out, safe going out, safe going out. I was totally mindful all the time, lady. Please excuse me if I make fun of some traditions, but sometimes that's what it is. People think that insight is just noting stuff. And of course, that will never get you enlightened. In fact, that will make you lose your job if you're a guard of a person's house. If you see the burglars go in, call the police for goodness sake, or do something. Don't just sit there and note. That's sometimes what happens. There's a bushfire here, and insight meditators, bushfire. Without calling the police. Okay, please, I apologize for being silly here towards other traditions, but you can see some people actually do that. Insight is something much more profound and deep than that. In fact, insight is learning to sort of understand exactly what is going on and reacting appropriately, to solve problems. That is why, to equate insight with mindfulness is just not good enough. If you really want insight, you have to have the whole of the Eightfold Path, not just one factor of it. And that is one of the reasons why, I think it's verse 372 of the Dhammapada, I probably got it wrong, because I'm getting old now, and sometimes the numbers get confused. But there is this wonderful saying of the Buddha, Ezo wa mago nati anyo dasanasa visuddhya. And dasana is like wisdom, it's a good word for insight, dasana. So this, what it means, this the only path, there is no other for the purity of insight. And it's very, very clear. Ezo, this, wa means only, maga path, nati anyo, there is not another for the purity of insight. You know what that means? You know what it refers to? Eightfold Path. So this is a teaching of the Buddha. It's the Eightfold Path, the whole works. That's what you need to gain insight. So it's not just sitting down and meditating. It's everything else gives rise to insight too. Things like right speech, right action, right livelihood, your precepts. So when you are keeping your precepts, you are making insight happen. Why? It is because to be able to get insight, you need to sort of have a very clear mind. This is Ajahn Chah's simile. And living here in the forest, I think you can appreciate it. If a leaf, just one single leaf, falls in the forest, you can't really see it that easily, because it falls amongst hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of other leaves and twigs. It just gets lost in the confusion of other litter on the forest floor. But if one leaf falls on a clearly swept path, then it stands out, and you can see it very clearly, and you can examine it because it's not lost in the confusion of other leaves and twigs. It's a single leaf on a clear path. And Ajahn Chah used that simile for insight. If you have a very complicated mind, and you have a very busy life, so many worries and so many troubles, something comes up, you haven't got the space, the clarity, not even the freedom to really understand it and examine it. There's just too much going on. So if you really want insight, number one, you have to keep a moral code, keep some precepts, because precepts simplify your life. You all know what happens, you do something stupid like you have an affair with somebody else. How much complication does that give to your life? It doesn't only complicate your life, it complicates my life, because she comes up and tells me, oh, my husband's having an affair, what should I do? What should I do this? And God, it really makes my life difficult. So please, out of compassion for me. And don't ever think, you guys, that you will not get caught. Guys think like that, they think they can get away with it. And you should have known, 2 years ago, this should have got rid of that idea that you won't get caught totally. Because the head of the CIA, he got caught having an affair with another girl. Now he is the head of the CIA. He knows all about keeping secrets and covert operations. And even he got caught. So there's no hope for you. You will get busted for sure. But it does really complicate your life. And it's the same, even other little things. You cut corners with, your precept. You don't put your tax file in properly or whatever. It just really complicates your life. But if you keep a very strong moral code, life is actually so simple. You don't have to worry about anything. You're not afraid of getting caught. And your life is a very simple, peaceful life. And that's one of the lovely things about precepts. It simplifies things. Virtuous people are more likely to live uncluttered lives. And also, we have things like the precepts of renunciation, which you're keeping here. Not eating in the afternoon, no TVs, no radios and all that sort of stuff. It means that you are uncluttered. Which means when a leaf drops in your mind, you've got more time, more space to understand what's going on. How can you really contemplate something, in your ordinary daily life where you're rushing here and rushing there? It's so hard to find the space to have insight. And indeed, sometimes we do need those opportunities to get out of the rat race, to leave the jungle in order to understand insight. And that is why I gave a simile in my first book, again from personal experience. And that was the simile of when I was, I got my scholarship to go to Cambridge and had 8-9 months off before I had to go up to Cambridge. It was like a gap year in those days. It was a gap 6 or 8 months, 9 months, I forget how long it was. So I decided to spend the summer vacation, get a job, collect some money, and then go to the United States for the summer. And I got so bored with the United States. It was just like any other country. So instead I went to Central America. That was more interesting. And this was in 1969. And I went to Guatemala, really into the jungle. And there was real jungle in those days. An amazing experience, just watching the indigenous people just, totally naked in their dugout canoes, going through these windy rivers through the jungle, and any moment expecting Tarzan to come swinging out. And it really was just, the old ancient culture there. But what I was really trying to do, I was trying to get to these pyramids in the middle of the jungle, and it was not easy to get to. It took me 3 days, traveling on fishing boats, back of trucks, small other little vehicles, motorbikes, whatever, through the jungle for 3 days before I got to this site. And as soon as I got to this ancient site, the Mayan civilization, I didn't have enough money to get a guidebook. So I didn't really know, what I was supposed to see and what I was supposed to understand. But it was very wonderful that there was no guards anywhere. There was 1 or 2, I think, local archaeologists fossicking around, but I was actually free to just wander over the whole site. There's only about 2 other people there. So now, okay, I was 18-year-old boy. Now what does an 18-year-old male do when he sees a big pyramid? Climb it, yeah. It's just a male thing, okay, you see something, you want to conquer it. So I decided to climb up one of the pyramids. No one to stop you at all. And when I got to the top, that was when I got this incredible insight, understanding of what those pyramids were there for. Now it's very helpful not to have any previous instructions of what to look for. So your mind was totally open. It's one of the problems with getting insight. You always expect what you're supposed to see. You've already been told what's up there. And so actually you don't actually see what's there, you see what you expect to see. That's one of the reasons why learning and knowledge are some of the biggest obstacles to insight. That's one of my sayings is never allow your learning to stand in the way of truth. Put all the learning, all your knowledge, all your reading, all your understanding, even what you've heard from me, pull that aside. And when you don't know, then you can see. So I got up to the top of that pyramid, and what did I see? It was just so obvious. You were above the tree line. You were above the jungle. And that was for the first time in 3 days I could see the horizon. Now you may not think that's a big thing, but if you've never seen the distance for 3 days, it's really, like they used to say, mind-blowing. Wow. Because in those 3 days, traveling through the jungle, there are roads through those jungles, paths, but they get overgrown so quickly with creepers and trees, because the jungle is so incredibly alive. Things grow so quickly. So you cut a road through the jungle, and within a few weeks, it's all covered over with creepers and stuff. So I would never see the distance. I could never even see the sky most of the time, just see it coming through the canopy of leaves. And now, for the first time, I could see infinity in all directions, with nothing between me and endless emptiness. And I could look down on the jungle where I've been traveling for 3 days. It wasn't that far, but going through jungle is very slow work. And this is real jungle. You don't have that jungle very much these days unless you go in really remote areas of the world. You can see where you came from. And I realized, wow, this is the meaning of insight. You've got to get above and out of the jungle first of all. And then you can see from above, like I used to call it the bird's eye view. Now you call it the Google Maps view. You can actually see where everything is and how it all relates to each other. I could see the town which I slept in the night before, not that far away, but took forever to get from the town to the middle of the jungle where the ruins were. And you can see just the place where I was the night before in the distance. You can see everything. And I realized this is like the insight into your life. All that journey which you've come so far, and why you came that journey. When you get above and out of the jungle, then you can actually see. But even better, you can see this incredible emptiness. It goes on forever, and nothing between you and infinity in all directions. Not scary, because it was the emptiness which embraced everything. Wow. And now it's understood what those pyramids were there for. Because I imagined, when at the top of that pyramid, sitting there just blissing out, just what would have happened if someone was actually born in that jungle. I'd only been in the jungle for 3 days and it was an amazing experience. Imagine you grew up in that jungle, 20, 30 years, you never seen the horizon, never seen the sky, and some sort of priest took you up those stairs and showed you. Insight would be just right there in front of you, and if you couldn't see something, that's really dumb. That's probably why they were there. So anyhow, that simile is what we're doing here. You know what the jungle means? Your thoughts, your family, your iPhone, your monastery if you're a monk, your Buddhist society, your family, whatever it is. All that's jungle, which demands all your attention all the time. And that is so overgrown, entangled. And what you do here, you're climbing the pyramid until you've let go of all past and future. That's way down there somewhere. Or your family, you can see it, but you're above and free from it. Or your past, future, all your thoughts, way down there, but you're above that, in the cool, free air above the jungle of your life. And then you get real insight. Now I can see where everything is. So not only do you get understanding and insights into the ordinary things of your life, which is why monks like me can give all those teachings about the 2 bad bricks and the opening the door of your heart and all those other interesting similes which are about life. Because you're above the jungle, you can see it down, understand how it works, but you can also give the deep insights about what's above and beyond the jungle, the infinity, the emptiness. Wow. But the two have to go together. So this is one of the reasons why that we meditate. Because meditate is just leaving the jungle. It is letting go, climbing out of the entanglements of your life. That's why we come to Jhana Grove for. Yeah, you can meditate at home, but you're meditating at home and your wife says, your boss is on the phone, your career's on the line, you better answer it now. Oh, they're just about to get enlightened. Or you're meditating there and your kid, mummy, mummy, mummy. It's so hard to meditate sort of, in the jungle of your lives. So you come here and there's a great sense of freedom. You can get mobile phone messages. You probably figured out where you can get those now. I've seen you. But wouldn't it be wonderful just to hand in your mobile phones, your smartphones, whatever it is. They call them smartphones. They're not smartphones. They're dumb phones. They are. And one of our members, our IT guy, he's got his own IT company, so half for our Buddhist society and half for himself, he went over to this big conference and in Silicon Valley, it's called Wisdom 2, I think, conference. Not all these big shots, Zuckerberg and all these other people giving presentations over there, Chade Meng, he's a good mate of mine from Google, and just giving the latest basically ideas on IT, straight from Silicon Valley. These are the movers and shakers over there. And the theme of their conference was brilliant. And it was disconnect to connect. It's a brilliant saying. Disconnect to connect. Because too many people, they were just connected to their iPhones, but they weren't connected to each other. And they certainly weren't connected to themselves. So the message was, disconnect, turn off your phones, turn off your computers, turn off your tablets, so you can connect with the people you live with and love, and you can connect with yourself as well. It was really brilliant. Some of the people over there have got their heads together. So, for the rest of this retreat, disconnect to connect with yourself and with each other and with life. Please leave the jungle. And I will guarantee your life will not go pear-shaped. when you don't answer your SMSs. You will not get into trouble, and the world will not stop, Wall Street will not crash when you, you don't check things out. That's a wonderful thing. It's actually when you don't get involved, a lot of times things go much better. I have this, I can get it out if anyone doesn't trust me, but I have this article, it's over in Bodhinyana. It's some years ago, and I love quoting this, especially when there's GPs, in the audience. In Jerusalem, the doctors went on strike for about 2 weeks. It could have been 3 weeks, I forget now, but a significant time. And they did emergency work, but nothing else. And in those 2 or 3 weeks, with the doctors not working, the death rate plummeted. Nowhere near as many people died when the doctors weren't working. And the statistics are there, clear. When the traffic lights go out in Perth or something, the intersections, people know when to move and when not to move, and traffic goes far more freely. I don't know how many times it's happened to you. You're waiting on a red light and there's no traffic in the opposite directions for miles, but still you've got to wait there, wasting time. So sometimes when we don't control, things flow far more smoothly. When you don't need to keep checking things, and life goes even better for you. Disconnect to connect with yourself and with life. So this is what we mean by climbing that pyramid. You're disconnecting from all your thoughts, ideas, plans, memories, so you can connect with wisdom. So that's what we meditate for. So when we let go, we're also letting go of our body, disconnecting to our body, so we can understand it. It's one of those things, you can't see something, you can't ever see your own nose, it's just too close to you. So unless you have a mirror, you've got to put some distance between you and that thing, and then you understand it. And this is why you climb the pyramid. There's a distance between you and the jungle, then you can understand it. And with thoughts, put distance between you and the thought, and then you can start to understand it. This is the way of insight. And you may have noticed that I've never asked you to use willpower during this retreat. I've asked you to understand these things. Now understand your past and your future. Understand your thinking. Now I'm going to just use the thinking for this moment to get insight into thinking. Why do you get so caught up in thoughts? Why is even now, after 4 or 5 days of trying to teach you to shut up inside and be still, you're still thinking a lot? So willpower will never work. You say, shut up, I'm not going to think. And then that's a thought. And there's another thought about the thought, and a thought about the thought about the thought. I shouldn't think, but that's another thought, and so is that. And it just gets so convoluted. You cannot stop thinking through willpower. You use wisdom power. And what do I mean? See if, like going up that pyramid, you can separate yourself from the thinking. Put the thinking out here, and imagine you are looking at a distance. You're up a pyramid, and you're looking down at the jungle of your thoughts. But don't get involved in the thinking. If you're involved in the thinking, you're in the jungle, you can't see anything. And you get caught up, and you sort of get the illusion that thinking is going to be important and going to get you somewhere and solve your problems, as I said earlier on. But when you put the thinking out there, and you're watching from a distance, you look at those thoughts, just what a waste of time they are. You actually see that. If you could read somebody else's mind, I wish I could give you just a few minutes where you can read somebody else's mind and watch them thinking. And because it's not your thoughts, it's somebody else's thoughts, you would come to the very clear conclusion, absolutely 100% guaranteed, what stupid thinking they're doing. What a total waste of time, they're thinking. And if you could only see your own thoughts like that, you can't read other people's minds, but you should be able to read your own. and see just what a stupid thinking this really is. What a waste of time it is. You can only do that when you put space between you and the thinking. You don't get involved. An example of that, and I've only got a certain amount of experiences in life, this is one of those examples. I was on a flight once, and on the flight they always have these in-flight entertainment stuff. And so it was one of these flights where a screen came down. And I couldn't stop looking at it because it was right in front of me. Okay, you meditate, as soon as you open your eyes you see it. But I didn't have any headphones or anything, so I didn't know what was actually going on, except just working it out from the screen. And it was supposed to be like a drama, very, very exciting. But when I didn't have the headphones, it was one of the best comedies I've ever seen. I was laughing my head off. And the movie, I remember it to this day, it was called Armageddon. It was the end of the world, again. I don't know how many movies about the end of the world, but it never ends. It keeps going on. It's a fraud. But anyway, it's supposed to be the end of the world real time. I think some asteroid or meteor or something was heading to Earth, a big one. And it was going to destroy the Earth. And they had to send these astronauts up to the asteroid to try and blow it apart. And apparently they put 2 space shuttles or whatever it was. And the first one with the hero on board. It lost sort of control somewhere and it smashed into the asteroid. And huge sparks and explosions going everywhere. And then that was not the end of it. And then it rolled down the cliff. And there was smashes and flames and bangs. And it was like 5 minutes of total destructive mayhem. Now, if ever you've seen a car crash, whack and they're dead. For these people, whack, bang, explosion, boom, bang, all over the place. And after 5 minutes, it went quiet. And, there's some sort of ledge on the ruined spacecraft. And you see a little hand come up. And then the person pull themselves up. Now, it would be okay, you think that at least his hairstyle would be a bit disarranged. Perfect hair. Not even a bruise, let alone any blood. And even his suit, whatever he was wearing, was impeccably manicured. As if he just arrived on the red carpet to the Oscars, not survived the 10 minutes of total mayhem which would have killed Superman. And as soon as I would never ever in my whole life forget that moment. I just burst out laughing when everyone else was, he survived, how wonderful, how brave. And that's like watching your thoughts. When you're right involved in it, you really get this is brilliant, well done, yes, he survived. But when you watch from a distance, it's total ridiculous stupidity. If you could just step away from your thoughts, you'd be laughing all day. Your inner speech is a comedy. So that's, when we get insight into what are these thoughts anyway, you need to have some space between you and the thoughts. That's why I often say to you, I think I mentioned it earlier, but I'm reinforcing it now. If you're still getting lost in the thoughts, push them. Use some willpower here, okay? Push them at a distance from you and imagine you're standing back from them. You're in some seat, say in the sofa of your lounge room, and the thoughts are projected on some screen, even a computer screen will do, or a TV screen. The thoughts are out here and you're in here. Put some space between you and the thoughts. Then you can get perspective. And then you will know for yourself, the insight will be very clear, these thoughts are a waste of time. What am I doing this for? This is rubbish stuff. And it's not useful either. It just goes on and on and on and on and gets me nowhere. When you can actually get perspective, that's called insight. Seeing things from a distance, not being involved in them, not being entangled in the jungle. A leaf falls in the jungle, you can't understand it. When it's just a leaf, where everything else is free and space, you can see these things. Thoughts are over there, but it's no longer in the jungle. You're in a pyramid watching from a distance. And that way, you can understand these things. And the insight you get is that these aren't really useful. And the result of that, it's not just knowing these things. If you see the burglars coming in the house, you close the gates, you stop them or call the police. You don't allow them to steal things. Once you see what thoughts really are from a distance, you stop them stealing your peace and stealing your happiness. You stop them making you angry. Because that's what anger is. You start thinking in a negative way. Until you get so angry, you've convinced yourself that person is a rotten bastard. And then you get angry at them. You've got to convince yourself first of all. And that's all done by thinking. And if you can only see that thinking, you realize you can't judge anybody. Why people do things, I don't know. They've got all their causes and effects, their upbringing, they're just who they are, all the influences on their life. But I can't blame anybody. It's just the product of their conditioning. Cause and effect, that's all. So how can I get angry? How can I get angry at a traffic light for going red? I've seen many people do that. I've seen people get angry at computers. Actually, I've got angry at computers sometimes. You stupid computer. Why did you crash right now? I was busy. It's not the computer's fault. The computer has not got artificial intelligence which has got it in for you. They're not sort of saying, here he comes again. I'm going to show him this time. I'm going to sort of crash. I'm going to go slow. I'm going to the screen is going to go blank. Ha ha ha. Have you ever seen people get angry at computers? I remember seeing this monk who was doing some sewing once. And I saw him in the sewing room in a monastery in Thailand, smashing the sewing machine against the wall. You stupid machine, you stupid machine. Machines aren't stupid nor intelligent, they're just machines. Total cause and effect. But I didn't blame him either. He wasn't a stupid monk. It's just how he's been brought up as well. He's like a machine as well. So how can you get angry at your wife? She's just a machine, that's all. She's just artificial intelligence. Why do they always have artificial intelligence? I want to sort of get people to investigate artificial stupidity. That is much more close to human nature. But anyway. So there we go, that's what thinking. We get insight, and when we get insight we can let things go. That's a sign of insight. In Buddhism they've got this recurring metaphor. And the metaphor is, that some monks or nuns, they're meditating in the jungle and something disturbs you. And they call that Mara. Mara, it's not really a devil, it's just this being who always wants to stop people meditating. He came up to the Buddha, first of all. The Buddha was about to become enlightened, okay? And Mara came up and said, look, forget about enlightened. You've got such incredible power. You're so wise and smart. You'd be like a leader of people. Be a universal monarch, a great king, a great leader. You can abolish poverty. You can create peace amongst nations. You can do all these amazing things for the world. But don't get enlightened, okay? Otherwise you won't do anything like that. It was just the bait of power. Lots of people get caught in that. They think if you become the president, then you can solve all the problems of the world. At least the problems of your country. And many people go into politics or want to be presidents and whatever for really wonderful reasons. They really want to make a difference. Now you may be sort of quite negative towards politicians and leaders, but I've met a few of them. And I always remember meeting Rajapaksa, the president of Sri Lanka, the very first time. And I don't mind sharing this with him. Maybe I shouldn't because it was just a personal comment. And the first thing he said to me, he said, I'm a failure. And he said to me, and this was the president at the height of his power, I'm a failure. Because he told me he went into politics especially trying to get election as the president of Sri Lanka, to try to end the conflict with the Tamil Tigers peacefully. That's really what he wanted to do, but he said he couldn't do it. He felt a failure. Many people try that. They have really high intentions, but sometimes the system beats them. And it's so difficult. So they offered the Buddha that, Mara. But the Buddha was wise enough and said, no, that's not the right way to end conflicts in the world, by being in power, by control. He was smart enough to outsmart Mara. And then Mara said, okay, power doesn't really grab you. What about sex and pleasure? So he created all of these beautiful women dancing in front. Now this, sometimes you think that religion is not nuanced, has got no understanding of psychology. Buddhism has the most amazing understanding of psychology, because that all these beautiful young women were dancing in front of the Buddha, and that didn't give him any sort of change in his character. So, they stopped dancing. They said, "This, we're not getting anywhere with this Buddha fellow sitting under the tree," and so they turned into old women, and they said, "Man's desires are various." And even at that time they realised that there's some men like old women, some like fat women, all types of. So they realised that the sexual desires of men are just I'm really surprised sometimes. New ones come up every year. So they tried to sort of get him involved in that. Nothing actually worked until he became a Buddha. And then after he became enlightened, Mara never stopped. And he said, you're a Buddha now, you're enlightened, well done. But don't teach. Please don't teach. It's too bothersome to teach it. People will be asking you all these questions in interview times and in the evenings, and it'll be such a headache for you. Just take it easy and just meditate for the rest of your life. And the Buddha said, no, I'm going to teach. So whatever they were trying to control and trying to stop him doing things which were good, they call that Mara. And the Buddha never used force or violence against Mara. All they did was, I know you, I know what you're up to. And it was the wisdom, the insight, stopped Mara. And as soon as Mara realized that he was known, Mara slinked away. The monk knows me, the monk knows me. I could do nothing. And you see that over and over again in the sutras. So the Mara comes and tries to disturb somebody, and the person says, I know you, Mara. Ugh. She knows me. And Mara has to leave. That is wisdom power, that's insight. Once you see what's going on and understand it, the problem just vanishes immediately. So you're meditating and you're getting nowhere. You're stuck. Please do not use willpower. That's not the way to stop obstructions. Use insight, wisdom. What's going on? And I've told many of you that one of the best ways of overcoming problems in meditation is ask yourself, what do I want? Because there's always some wanting somewhere which stops you going deeper. So what do I want? When you find out what it is, oh, that's what I wanted. I wanted to get to that next stage. I had this beautiful meditation last year and I haven't got it yet. There's only a couple of days to go. Wanting. And as soon as you see it, it's like being up in the jungle, you see what you're doing, that's stupid. And as soon as you realize that, you stop doing it and you immediately go into deeper meditation. That's the power of insight in the path of meditation. It's wisdom power. And all the time that works for me. I get stuck sometimes sitting here, what's going on? Sometimes I'm not in the present moment anymore. I've described that as, you're taking a photograph and the image is fuzzy. It's not in total focus. So what I do is, I imagine I've got this camera, the old-fashioned cameras, which you have to focus by hand, and just twist the lens just slightly to get it sharp focus in the present moment. Because I realise I'm a little bit in the future or a little bit in the past. Only a little bit, but that's not sharp enough. And as soon as it gets sharp in the present moment, then you're off deeper into meditation. Or, that's like expectation. Expectation is the opposite of insight. Expect or inspect. You've got the choice. So don't look outside. That's excite. Look inside, seeing into this moment. So by focusing in this present moment, straight away the past and future goes, and so many problems and obstacles in meditation, they vanish immediately, and you start going deeper and deeper in. And it could be fear. Fear is one of the huge problems in meditation. Because when you have fear, then you have control. When you have control, you mess around with things, you disturb, you agitate things. All because of fear. And where does fear come from? Fear always comes from me. I'm losing something, or I'm failing on something. It all comes from ego. So one of the great insights to do while you're meditating, not just present moment awareness, but a little bit of no self-perception. It's not my body anyway. I'm only a visitor. Certain body's aching, it's going to die. Fair enough, it's going to die one day. And actually, the sooner it dies, the better. Have you ever been to old people's homes? And getting dementia, it's not a nice place to be, old people's homes and dementia. So if you die young, yeah, I've escaped from old age. I've escaped from the old people's homes. Woohoo, I've died young. Can you understand that? Go to an old people's home. Is that where you want to end up? So what are you going to do? One good way is die before you get there. That's my plan. So if you die, woohoo, yes, I've escaped the old people's homes, yes. But a lot of times, all this fear business. When you realize you don't own your body, it's nothing to do with me. This body is nothing to do with me, so I'm not really too worried about it. So when you realize that no self means you don't own things, you're only a visitor, it's so easy. Your meditation, do you own your meditation? So why do you think, I have got jhana, I haven't got jhana, I've only a few days to get, what's going to happen? Look, you don't own anything. If you do get a jhana, you won't be able to take it home with you, you leave it here. You can't carry it, it's just something which happens and then it vanishes afterwards. So, what are you trying to accumulate? What are you trying to get on this retreat? That's the other insight. So you say, what do I want? What am I trying to get? And you realize this is absolutely stupid, me trying to get jhanas. As if, jhanas is another possession which I can work on and get, just like all the other stuff which I've achieved in my life. At least if you get a degree, you get a piece of paper. So I will not give you a bit of paper. I will not give you a certificate. This certifies that the following person has achieved jhana. I will not do that, because that misses the whole point. If I did give you a piece of paper, I'd say, the person underneath here has got nothing to do, named underneath, has got nothing to do with the attainment of jhana. It's just what happened when they vanished. So they don't deserve the certificate at all, signed Ajahn Brahm. Because this is not getting something. So sometimes that using the insight of, it's not me, not mine, not a self, I don't own these things. This body of mind, all these feelings, the pleasure and the pain which comes up and goes away again, nothing to do with me. In fact, it's a wonderful insight to realize all the pleasure and pain of your life, all the pleasure is just the space between two moments of pain. Pain is just the space between two moments of pleasure, that's all it really is. And just the amount of pleasure you had before and afterwards, that determines how painful it is in between. And the pain which you feel, this depends upon how much pleasure there was before and afterwards. That's why in the old torture places they used to have the good cop and the bad cop. If they just had a bad cop, you just get used to the bad cops and it wouldn't really matter. But you always have to have the good cop beforehand and then the bad cop, because that makes the bad cop much worse. It's just the pleasure and pain of life. They dance around each other. You can't have one without the other. So all of you trying to be happy, trying to have pleasure, trying to get rid of pain. Are you ever going to achieve that? Have you ever done it yet? He said, it's going to end, it's going to go. And when it goes, I've got to go back to work now, this sucks. So you see this, pleasure and pain is out of control. So you stop trying to, when you realize that, you stop trying to control it. There is a statue in the south of Thailand in Venerable Buddhadasa's monastery. He passed away a long time ago. And my master liked it so much that when he was in UK visiting, I only went there once, he posed for the photographer in this statue. He's got his arms raised up in the air like this. And I've got a photograph on my shrine of this, one of my favourite Ajahn photographs, with a big smile on his face, the smile of enlightenment. And the caption is, "Joy at last to know there's no happiness in the world." Well, that's a beautiful insight. Joy at last to know there's no happiness in the world. And when you know there's no happiness in the world, you realise it's not your fault anymore. You mean I didn't make a mistake, that I have suffering every now and again? You mean there's nothing wrong with me, that I can't meditate? Joy at last to know I can't meditate. So you don't have to try any more for the next retreat. You don't have to have any disappointment or frustration. You realise, you mean it's not my fault that I can't meditate? Yes, well done. How many of you are feeling really rotten? You've been here a few days, haven't got jhana, haven't got nimitta, haven't even able to watch the breath. I'm hopeless. Don't take it personally, it's nothing to do with you. If you're going to blame anyone, blame the teacher. It's my fault, okay. Or even better, go and blame the organisers. The food was not right to get enlightened. So joy at last, this is no self-insight. You're out of control. That's one of the sayings on the t-shirt. Don't worry, it's all out of control. Isn't that a wonderful saying? Don't worry, it's all out of control. So you can just let go and just see what happens. What that means is you let go. It's out of control. So all this striving to get more happiness and get rid of pain and suffering, a total waste of time. So stop it and just sit here and just whatever happens is fine. You are letting go. Then you get jhanas. So do it, a bit of anatta sanya, no self. It makes life so easy. You don't have to do anything anymore. That's why the insight into these things is brilliant. So we use insight meditation to overcome obstacles in meditation. And you know it's insight. Because sometimes, what is insight, what is not insight? I don't know how many monks there are, nuns, this tradition, that tradition. There's even an Ajahn Brahm tradition now, oh God. There is no Ajahn Brahm tradition, Ajahn Chah tradition, Mahasi Sayadaw tradition, Sali Dipankara tradition, Mahayana tradition, Tibetan tradition, Dzogchen tradition, Zen tradition. How many traditions are there? And as soon as another monk comes up or nun comes up, here we go, another tradition. Do you haven't got enough traditions? I tell Buddhism, it's not sectarian. Especially the monks and the nuns, we don't believe in sex. But this is what happens, and just all these different traditions. Shut up, all those different traditions. It's just Eightfold Path. That's all there ever was, all there ever will be. So what we really do here is we learn how to let go of these things. And it's insight. It is the right tradition, no matter what name it is, no matter who teaches it, if it makes you let go and become very peaceful. Insight by its result. If it's insight and you can talk with other people at a coffee table and you argue with each other on the nature of the reality, is it cosmic consciousness, is there nothing left at all, what happens when people get enlightened, can women get enlightened, can monkeys get enlightened, people love having all these theories they can argue with other people on. That is not insight at all. Insight is not what you use to argue with your friends. Insight is what stops you, makes you peaceful. There's an old Zen story about two monks And they saw this wind, this flag fluttering in the breeze. And one of the monks said to the other, "See, the flag is moving." And the other monk said, "No, the flag is not moving. The wind is moving." And they had an argument. And they went to see their master. And one of the monks said, "He said the flag was moving. I said the wind was moving. Who's right?" And the master said, "You are both wrong. Your mind was moving." And then all three of them were not very happy with that. So then they went to see Ajahn Brahm. And Ajahn Brahm said, "All three of you were wrong. It wasn't the flag which was moving. It wasn't the wind which was moving. It wasn't your minds which were moving. It was your mouths which were moving." And that's where the argument came from. I love messing around with traditions. That's where the arguments come from. Your mouth was moving, so shut up. So when it's real insight, it solves the problem and creates peace and quiet. So insight is not some philosophy you can write a book and impress all your friends with how wise you are. Insight is how peaceful you can be, how still you can be. So this is what happens with insight meditation. If it's real insight, if you see these things, what's going on, if you can sort of somehow get out of the forest and actually have a look, you think, "Oh, that's what the problem is." And then you can be still. And it makes you peaceful. That's why any of the stuff which I have taught you over the last few days, it's only worth as much as it makes you peaceful, as it makes you still, as it takes away problems and obstacles in your life and in your meditation. If it makes you still, well done, that's good. And eventually you get the understanding. And so often you have to hear it again and again and again. I know that people keep on saying, "Oh, Ajahn Brahm, you keep repeating your stories." Of course I repeat them, because you haven't understood them yet. If you really understood them, then you would be so still and enlightened. Like Ajahn Chah's simile of, sitting under the mango tree. That is the best. But you don't understand it. That's why you have to keep on repeating it. Sit still and everything comes to you. Just absolutely still and all these things happen. And how to be still? Just stop asking that question and just stop thinking about it. Just do it. Stop. That's one of the other ways of being still. That's why it's all taught to you, and it's so clear that Angulimala, chasing after the Buddha, trying to kill him. And that Buddha using some psychic power that Angulimala couldn't catch up with him. And Angulimala shouted out to the Buddha, "Stop, monk, stop!" And that's when the Buddha turned around and said, "I have stopped, you stop." And that was basically the cause of Angulimala's enlightenment. Not immediately, but soon afterwards. Just one word, stop. So that's why you can say that to yourself in meditation, just stop. And see if you can stop. That's insight. I think you've had a bit of insight already just saying that word. You can feel its result. It causes stillness. So it's insight which causes samadhi, stillness. And the more still you are, the more you see. Stillness causes insight. Insight causes stillness. They all work together. You cannot have one without the other. Which is why one of my favorite sayings of the Buddha, and you've heard this so many times, it's a brilliant saying and I always remember this. Nati janang apanyasa panya nati ajayato yamhi janang chapanya cha sawe nibbana santike. There is no jhana without insight. You have to use insight to get to jhanas, not willpower, not even just spending more time, more retreats, retreat upon retreat after retreat. Soon I'll get jhana. Please use your insight. Understand, what is the problem? What do I want? What am I holding on to? What do I think is mine? What am I trying to control? What am I afraid of? Those are the sorts of areas you can use insight on. And you know you've got the answer when it becomes still, when the mind doesn't argue, when the mouth doesn't move anymore. Then you know that you've got somewhere. And it feels, you can feel the peace. It's incredibly powerful and strong and blissful. You understand that this is getting into stillness. You have the insight. And an incredible insight. The insight keeps on getting, you have insight, you get more, more insight, more stillness, more insight. There's no jhana without insight, and there's no insight without jhana. Panyasa nati ajayato. And then the third line is one of the best. Or the third and the fourth line. But when you have the jhanas and the insight, then you're in the presence of Nibbana. You're right there. And it's just going to happen. Enlightenment happens. The big insights. But you need the stillness and the insight working together. So people say to us, Ajahn Brahm, do you teach insight meditation? Do you teach stillness meditation, samatha? What do you teach, Ajahn Brahm? And the answer is, Eightfold Path. You teach everything, the Eightfold Path. You teach precepts as well, the whole works. Because that is the package which leads to enlightenment. And in particular, you can focus on the stillness, on the samadhi, you can focus on the insight, fine, but please don't forget the precepts and all the other stuff as well. And if you do all that together, the Buddha said if you walk the Eightfold Path, it's going to happen. There's no possibility of anything else. If from here if you start walking west from here, you're going to meet the ocean. It's certain. If you keep walking west from Jhana Grove, it doesn't matter whether you go a bit south, north, whatever, along the roads or across country, if you keep going west from here, you're going to get to the ocean for sure, sooner or later. The same as if you walk the Eightfold Path. You have to get to enlightenment. There's no other possibility. Sooner or later you get enlightened if you follow the Eightfold Path. So that is what insight is all about. Ta-da! So, do you like that talk today? Hopefully. Maybe. Who knows? If not, you get it again next time.